Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's data submission working group related to FERC Order 881, Managing Transmission Lines Ratings Phase 2. My name is Isabella Nicosia, and I will be facilitating the web conference today, and I'm also representing the ISO Stakeholder Affairs team. I'm also joined today by Raja Tapatabala and Surajal Chowdhury, who will be presenting for us today. Before we get started, just a reminder that the presentation is available out on the initiative webpage. You can get to that page by going to kaiso.com. When you get to that main page, you'll see the State and Form tab. Underneath that tab, you'll see Policy Initiatives. That'll take you out to our main initiative landing page. And then if you scroll down, you'll be able to find the FERC Order 881 initiative page, and the presentation will be one of the very first documents listed there. So you may have noticed when joining today's meeting that there is a new pre-registration process required to join meetings. So this is required for all future meetings in order to receive a link to join the meeting. The link to pre-register is available in the meeting notice and on the ISO calendar. And the reason that we're requiring this is because a recent update to WebEx disabled the ability to view the list of meeting attendees, which I know was a big something desired by a lot of stakeholders. So this new pre-registration process will still allow us to provide that list of meeting attendees to you all during the meeting. So we'll be sending the link out to the list in about 10 minutes or so. So keep an eye on the chat for that. And then this call is being recorded. The recording is for informational and convenience purposes only. So any related transcription should not be reprinted without the ISO's permission. And if you need technical assistance at any point during today's call, you can send a chat to the event producer. Our event producer today is Silas. We will be pausing for questions throughout the call today. So if you connected to audio through your computer or use the call me option through WebEx, you can select the raise hand icon, which is located at the bottom of your screen. And if you dialed into the conference outside of WebEx, you'll need to press #2 to raise your hand. We'll be keeping an eye on both the phone line and the WebEx queue. And just a reminder to please state your name and affiliation before making your comment or asking your question so we know who the comment or question is coming from. And then you can also send your question through the chat to me directly. Again, my name is Isabella Nicosia, or you can send it to all panelists. So the agenda for today, in just a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Raja and Surajal to go over any project timeline updates, and then also provide some updates on real-time AAR progress, and then we'll leave some time towards the end of today's call to go over the working group schedule and next steps. So with that, I will turn things over to Raja to kick things off.
Thank you, Isabella. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Raja Tapatabala. I'm the Director of Operation Engineering Services here at KAISO RC West. So today, I think from a project point of view, we have been sharing this slide for a long time. I just wanted to let you know where we are today, and wanted to bring to your attention one of the key items that we have made progress on, especially on the track 1. This is the real-time reliability applications where we receive the AARs and ratings through the ICCP, especially for the TOs that have this capability today. So we're trying to work with our Siemens, who's our vendor, to finish the process. Today we can receive the data, but the data cannot be used in our the reliability application. So that's what we're working on, along with a couple of other key changes related to FAC 11 standard changes. So those things will be ready by Q2 2024. Siemens will deliver us and hopefully be ready, and we can start using them in our real-time application. Currently, there's a work that is Surajal, especially Surajal, is working with some of the PTOs, some of the TOPs that have this capability today. He's working on mapping those to our ICCP process. So once we are ready, we can start using the data. So this is where I wanted to make sure to bring to your attention any TOs or PTOs, depending upon your timeline, when you're ready. Please do share your expected timeline when you're going to be ready, so that we can work with you and set up a time so that we can start this mapping process, because it's a lot of manual work. So it's better for us to work together and ahead before we go 2025, because everything need to be ready by 2025, but we don't want all the TOs coming together and say, yeah, let's work right on the last day, right? Because there's no way we can do all that mappings. There's a lot of model work that needs to be done. So we would appreciate your timelines. So please do work with us when you're going to be ready, so we can plan that ahead and make sure this is a smooth transition. As far as track two, as in track one is going on good, as I mentioned. Track two, this is the key application. I'm sure a lot of TOs, we have been getting a lot of questions from some of the TOs and PTOs, especially when we're going to publish some of the key formats, whatnot. As we have been talking, right, we were deciding between either developing a tool internally or working with OATA vendor. So we made a decision. We are going with the OATI, Open Access Technology Company. They have a product called WebLine R. We'll be utilizing those applications to develop our look-ahead AAR application. What does that mean? This is the requirement, the 10 days ambient adjust rating requirements from the FERC Order 881. So that process, all the data from the TOs will be acquired through this application. So now that we finalize the vendor, we're going to start talking with them, work with them, and finalize the format. How we're going to share, right? What are the things that you can do, either API or uploads or different ways that you can upload the information. So we'll finalize those before we actually develop it. We'll finalize the formats and then share with you guys. So you folks can start working on your tools. So that is our goal. Hopefully, the end of this quarter, we'll be there where we can actually start sharing the formats, just like we have been sharing with the track one formats. Then we can plan work with you guys. So again, this is a tool that OETA does not have today. They are working on it. So we have set up a lot of requirements, what we need, what not. Once we finalize the format, we'll share with you. That is going to be key update from today. As far as track three, one of the things that we wanted to be transparent about the track three, this is as we have shared in the white paper as well as in a couple of our forums. It impacts a lot of our applications. What do we mean by, right? So the day-ahead markets, the real-time markets from the KISO point of view, and all the look-ahead reliability applications. RC West has D+1, D+2, D+3 studies, as well as the outage, 7-day outage studies, right? The short-term outage studies. So all the processes will be impacted by this look-ahead ambient adjust ratings. So we have identified some resource constraints internally with the vendors, as well as our especially KISO is working on a lot of different projects, as you guys are aware. So we are evaluating from a project point of view. We are evaluating what can we accomplish, right? What are the tools that we can accomplish, so that if there's any other things that we cannot accomplish by July 2025, we plan to go to FERC and obviously seek an extension if we decide on that. Again, we are still evaluating. We haven't finalized what the tools will be finishing up, what tools will not be able to finish by this time. But we just wanted to be transparent to the group so that everybody is aware of it. I know it looks like there's a question from Seth. So let's see what is the question.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, Seth, with DC Energy. So in some of the previous calls, I gathered that track 3 was the point that these ambient adjusted ratings would be used in the market systems. So in other words, like in day ahead in real time, we'd actually see the ARR ratings. Is that still the case?
Yes, Seth, I think this is where we are evaluating, right? On top of the day-ahead market, real-time market, we do have a lot of look-ahead applications, as I mentioned, D+1 reliability studies, right? And as well as our short-term outage studies, as well as the our total transfer capability studies that we have, and available transfer capability tools that we're working on. So a lot of those tools will be impacted. So we're looking into that. So what we can accomplish, right? We haven't made a final decision. What at least we're working together. But again, at the end of the day, the track 3, if everything gets accomplished, right, it targets the day-ahead market as well as the real-time market. Does that answer your question, Seth? I think you're on mute, Seth.
Yeah, I said it does. Thank you. I'm not sure if you had heard that, but I really appreciate the response.
Okay, good. Yeah, on top of that, right, there's also some of the transparency requirements, especially the transmission line rating methodologies, any of the exceptions that's going to be part of the TO's rating methodology, right? If they're not calculating ambient rating due to whatever reason, operating reasons or some of the reasons where it does not make sense to calculate AR on the piece of equipment. So all those exceptions will need to be accomplished by July 1st, 2025. So all those things will be developed into the Track 2 application, right? It doesn't mean the TOs will be ready, right? Again, everybody need to be ready by July 2025, but our Track 2 application where it can do all those things will be ready by Q4 2024. Again, depending upon who is ready, we can start at least collecting that information and putting that in our tool set. Before we go to the next slides, right, I just wanted to get any other questions related to where we are today and some of the key updates that we made with the vendor selection as well as some of the resource constraints that we are seeing.
We do have
Nagesh, yeah, go ahead.
another question in queue.
One question I had was for seasonal ratings, where we are moving from 2 to 4 ratings per year. Where does that fit into the plan? Are you already ready to ingest? And what is the method going to be? Are we changing the method for sending seasonal ratings to CAISO?
Yeah, Nagesh, I think two-way Srijal can help me answer this question too. On the EMS side, the work is going on where we can receive that four seasonal ratings. On top of that, this look-ahead application, as I mentioned, right, where we can receive AARs. We plan to develop all that logic into that, where the TOs can actually submit their seasonal ratings into this new tool as well. So eventually, that is our goal. I know right now today we have different ways, right? There's an Excel template, there's an XML template where the TOs, as well the PTOs, they submit through the TR. So we might not be able to accomplish all those things by July 2025, but ultimately, eventually, our goal is to have one set of tools for all this rating applications. So that's where we want to move towards to. But again, based upon timelines, we'll go in phases. But does that
Okay.
answer your question, Nagesh?
Yes, thank you so much. Just one additional question. So then, if we decide, just in the interest of making project decisions, to send you seasonal ratings the same way we do today, which will be Excel based, would that be okay? That way we focus on forecast and real-time ratings because that's new models, but do seasonal ratings the same way.
Yeah, I think definitely, Nagesh, I think initially we plan to support, right? Again, there's a lot of timelines associated. So as we move towards the end goal, we plan to work with you folks to be able to see if we can automate those components. But yeah, at least initially we plan to support what we have today and acquire them.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Raja.
Also, Nagesh, this is Surajul. I've been meeting with PG&E, with Vinit and her group. So we had one dedicated meeting with PG&E, went through the Excel, and I think Vinit is pretty comfortable of what they need to send to ISO. So they are working on fulfilling the data on that Excel. So you can contact Vinit for details if you like.
Sounds good, Siraju.
Yeah, Nagesh, especially, right, there's a couple of components, right? Today, the ICCP process, right, it has to go a different set of process, and all the 10-day aside look-ahead application, right? A look-ahead ambient register rating, they go through a different tool because there's no way we can receive the 10 days through the ICCP process. So that's where I'm assuming some of the most of the manual processes today, especially the mapping, the templates, whatnot, it's in Excel, right? I feel that's going to still continue because it's you need to do the once, and after that you need to update as the model changes. Yeah. But all the
Yes.
10 days, the 10 days look ahead application, we want to automate and eventually move seasonal ratings to as well. But the ICCP ratings will be a separate process, right? As it is today, it's not going to change because it's a different purpose, right?
Yes, and my understanding is the same. So thank you. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. But any further questions before we can move on to the next slides. This is going to be key, as I said, right? We have been discussing whether to make a determination internally or external development, and finally we made the decision. So OETA is the lucky vendor that's going to develop the tools for us. Again, I think we have been talking about this, and we mentioned earlier, right? The current process is still the seasonal rating process. Still be there. It's through the IRS 010. 6.10. I know Cyril is working with the PTOs and TOs to acquire that. He has been providing some of the templates to some of the PTOs that are requested, some of the TOs that are requested. So Cyril, do you want to talk about that, how that communication is going on? So if anybody's interested in it, as I mentioned, depending upon when they're ready, who should they reach out to, whatnot, so they can start with?
Yes, thank you, Raja. Mainly, we are trying to build some prototypes with 8 or 10 TOP BAs that some of them reach out to us on a personal level, or you know, to see how the template look like. So we build the template, blank template, and then at least 10 BAs have their template filled out with their own data from our SIM model, and they looked at it. A few BAs scheduled a one-on-one meeting with me, and we went through the template and their EMS group and their network modeling group. So they asked for a dedicated call, and that's the way the process started. The plan is, you know, we will put the network model data in the template as an initial fundamental starting point from our model from this year. So the TOPs and BAs knows how the template look like with that data filled in, specific data through the RIMS process, and they will get used to it, and they'll know how to map it in their EMS and then fill out the template and send it to us so that we can start to build a prototype with few BAs when our software is ready. So we'll be talking about those in the next few slides.
Thank you, Sergio. Yeah, Sergio, we can move on to the next slide. Just documents, right? Is that exactly as Sergio mentioned? We're actually working with the TOs to collect and prepare the data, right? As I mentioned, once our tools are ready, we can upload it. As I mentioned, right, it's a mapping that needs to be established between CAISO RCWest model to the TOs and PTOs model, right? And as usually the SCADA points, you need to map them. It's all manual work, as I mentioned, right? There's no way you can automate this mappings. So that work is going on. Once that is done, then the tools are ready. We'll upload the template. Then right, you guys can start sending the data, and all our processes, at least our real-time reliability application processes, can use those real-time AR in our applications. This is just for track one, as I mentioned, right? This does not go into the markets. We can move on to the next slide. So again, I think if there's no further questions on the work that Sergio is working on, right? If you any of the TOs mentioned, right, reach out to Sergio. He's going to definitely work with you guys and move to the next step. Just wanted to mention, I know we have got a couple of questions from TOs as well as here internally as well as even externally too. How we're going to design the fallback rating process. You know, what do we mean by the fallback rating process, right? As usual, right? If you're getting the data through ICCP, or you're getting the data through the look-ahead application, right? The tools will go. Eventually, the tools will have a breakdown, either software issues or connectivity issues, whatever it is, right? So obviously, you need to fall back to the seasonal ratings, right? So we have a process that we have designed internally. How we're going to fall back. And what are the different ways we can rather than, we don't want to have a jerk, right? Every time there's a small change, we don't want to fall back and then come back again, because you don't want the tools rating toggle, right, between. So that's why you want to have some delay between the processes when they want to fall back and to what rating they want to fall back, whatnot. So this is our process. Sergio, is this eventually will be ready? Do you know, is it Q2, all these settings will be ready, or when this settings will be ready? That each TO, each BA TOP, we can set up a timeline, the timer associated with that, if your ICCP is gone, then we can wait for 60 minutes before falling back to the either seasonal ratings or the ratings that we set it up.
Correct, Raja. The plan is on the very first slide that we said Q2 or Q3 for the 2024 of testing and training piece will go in around that time because currently we have only 2 seasons. We're expanded to 4 seasons, and then we do not have the right through timer. So those are the new additions. We are adding a manually entered parameter for our RCUs to work with TOPs or BAs to set a timer. The reason for the timer is to not to have a momentary switch of the rating sets, which will be next slide. We'll talk about what is our priorities and all those. But the timer will be used, can be changed per BA. TOP level, that dispatcher can change the right through timer for the normally on Wednesday, Thursday, on Tuesday. Some BAs have a scheduled database maintenance. So for 5-10 minutes, link can go down while they're loading their database on their side. So those are our regular maintenance. We don't want to swap a rating set. We'll hold the last good value till their maintenance is over, and then we'll move on after the maintenance is done. So, and then this timer will be also used if there is a forced outage on the communication links that ICCP is no longer available. Then we'll wait till we do an on-call and we engage their on-call and we try to troubleshoot and after the write-through timer is expired, then we'll go to the next priorities or next priority of the rating sets.
Silas, you want to go to the next slide? So Sejal can talk about that as well. What is our priority schedule? Yeah, great, Sejal.
Right. So in our EMS system, we'll have a priority schemes. Priority 1 will be anytime our dispatcher or RC operator manually update limits. If they think that the telemetered limits are not valid, they can manually override it. If there is any issues with the telemetered limits, they can do a manual override locally. So that will be the highest priority. And priority 2 will be definitely the ICCP that we have been talking about, the dynamic limits updated from each entity based on demand as the ratings are changing. Suppose from the ARs, if there is a 5-degree temperature change, if the lookup table come up with the different ratings, on demand, our system will be updated from their EMS system with the data quality being good. And then priority 3 is anything on the outage management system if there is any derate or rerate of the limit sets. And priority 4 will be our new system, OATI system that Raja mentioned, that will have a look ahead and current hour and the next hour look ahead data, and then we'll have a broadcast from the new tool into our EMS system. We'll save it in case the link is down or communication failure over an hour. We can at least have something to get by. And priority 5 will be the seasonal limits. So the whole idea is it will be always, 80-90% of the time in a normal condition will be always priority 2, right? Because we're not touching, if the limits are, if MBA ratings are valid, then we're not touching anything, we're using as is. So number 2 is our normal condition, okay? So as long as data quality is good and updating, no other priorities matters. We're going to directly use priority 2 become our active limit sets. So we call it active limit sets, which is the effective limits basically out of all the priorities. So priority 2 will be always used until and unless all other priorities needs to be activated because we lost ICCP link. Okay. And there will be a reasonability limit check that we have it in the template that participant can use. Reasonability limit check in the template. They can add 15% plus minus of the seasonal limit. We'll be using those reasonability limit check just to have an envelope around the limits in case some erroneous calibration happens in the field or ICP that gives us a erroneous spike. So we'll at least clamp to the reasonability limit and set the data quality as a failed data quality. At least we'll not have a huge spike just because of erroneous incoming data due to manually entered or any software malfunction or any calibration, data calibration on the other side, on the BA side. So those are our main priority schemes. We'll only use seasonal limit in extreme cases. Swapping to the seasonal limit will be failing all those other priorities. Any question?
Yeah, one thing that I want to mention, Sirajul, is right again, if for some of the equipment that the TO chose to not calculate ARs, right, there's a valid reason, and then they develop the exceptions to those. Obviously, those will be the priority 5 because, right, the seasonal limits are the only one. There's nothing else going on. Again, there's an OMS outage management system B-rate exists, then that's a different one. But if there's an exception that TO chose not to calculate, then at that point, there's not going to be any dynamic limits. There's not going to be any forecasted limits for those ratings. So it will be default to the seasonal limits for those equipment, right? So yeah, there's nothing that the TO needs to do, right? It's all on our side. It's all built in into our processes. So this is our fallback process. So depending upon when the ratings go bad, we want to utilize the good values that we still have or how long we want to use, right? And those are different settings, right? As we go into this, as we understand how the TOs are calculating their ratings, right? How they're sending the values, right? Those things can be adjusted, but at least initially, this is what we want to go with once we go live. You can take up questions. Right.
Are there any questions? As a reminder, you can raise your hand by selecting the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen. If you dialed in separately, you'll want to press #2. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions.
Yeah. If there's no questions, I want to mention one thing that, again, as I mentioned, right, it's gonna be during testing, right, we need to see how the TOs are doing the calculations, especially between the priority 2 and priority 3, right? If there's any outage management outage card, and then there's an associated D rate because a particular operating condition is limiting the rating on that. How is especially if an equipment that is AR is being sent and there's an outage and that results in a rating that's lower, right? Because of whatever reason, breaker statuses or whatever it is, because breaker outage, whatnot. So how do we make sure that how is the TOs are making sure that they are sending the lowest limit to us? So those are things that we need to test it and make sure that all of us are on the same page with what is happening, because we don't want, right? We don't want limits being used that are invalid for a particular operating reason. So. Yeah.
All right, still no other questions. So I think that will take us into next steps. So we will be taking comments on today's working group discussion by end of day October 16th, which is 2 weeks from today. And we'll be posting a template to the initiative webpage in the next couple days for you to use to submit your comments. And then you can also submit any additional comments or questions related to this effort to ISO stakeholder affairs at CAISO.com, which is the email listed here on this slide. And then as far as upcoming meetings, our next quarterly initiative update is on November 2nd, and then the next data submission working group is scheduled for November 6th. We'll pause here to see if there are any last questions before we conclude today. All right, not seeing any. That concludes today's data submission working group. Thank you all for your participation and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, folks.